Hi, everybody. Anybody want to jump in really quickly? You are in the right place. This is another Onefirm webinar. Welcome very much. My name is Ben Chiriboga. I am the Chief Growth Officer here at Nexl, but today I get the distinct pleasure of hanging out with these great, wonderful folks to really dive into our next white paper. So we're going to let everybody come in, take a couple minutes to find their virtual seat, but while we're waiting, why doesn't everybody go around the horn and sort of introduce themselves, talk a little bit about where they're from. And if you are in the chat, go ahead and put where you're from in the chat as well. We'd love to hear from you. Ryan, you want to kick us off? Tell us a little bit about your background and where you're calling in from, because we have a very international board here.
Yeah, I'm Ryan Purkey with rQuadrant. It's an independent consultancy. And before that, I was working at an independent law firm here in Hong Kong. And so, yeah, that's where I'm calling from today is Hong Kong. It's 11 p.m. local time. And then background before that is digital marketing, digital space, working for SaaS companies and other things. But a long time, I'd say past decade, has been in B2B and professional services. So.
Amazing. Norm, want to go next? Let us know where you're coming from, and then we'll go Lynn and Ben, just because that's who I'm looking at here.
Yeah, well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and we're just about every place here today. I'm Norman Clark. I'm the founding principal and managing partner of Walker Clark LLC. We're a law firm management consultancy. We work internationally, mostly with small and mid-sized law firms, based here in Fort Myers, Florida. And my particular areas of practice are strategic planning and implementation, internal operations, and advising law firms on how to develop more business, particularly from their existing client bases.
Amazing. Norman, great to see you as usual. And Norman was having some technical difficulties, but he worked some magic in the background and hopped on to the internet, so we're happy to have you here, Norman, today. We're going to go in-house a little bit. We're going to leave the consultants and go into a former consultant, now turned Nexler. Lynn, good morning. How are you from New York, New Jersey? I'll just go ahead and say that.
Good morning, Ben. Good morning, everyone. That's right. Lynn Tellefsen Stehle here. I've been in legal marketing for, over 30 years at this point. I started out in technology, selling technology products and services to law firms. And then I moved in-house to law firms for, about 17 years. And then consulting, where I became a Nexl customer, fell in love, and here I am at Nexl. I'm a revenue consultant and happy to be here.
All right, wonderful, everybody. And let's go ahead and round this off with Ben Paul. Ben coming to us from way down south. I won't tell. Go ahead, tell us where you're coming from.
Morning, everyone. Morning, Ben. Good to be back again as always. I'm calling in here from New Zealand, Auckland, here in New Zealand, where it's a lovely 3 o'clock in the morning. So if I sound gravelly or I forget what I'm talking about, you'll completely understand and go with me. So no issues there. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called the BD Ladder. We specialise in helping law firms and other people in professional services grow their businesses through a range of business development and marketing services. I've previously been the BD marketing director of one of the largest firms here in New Zealand, then joined the largest global law firm. So that's probably given that away. And we use that expertise to help our clients. My background before I got into this world of working with law firms and other professional services for the last sort of 15, 20 years. Previously, I was a direct salesperson myself. So everything I teach my clients to do, I've done.
All right, everybody. Let's go ahead and give everybody, let's just put a pause here. I think some people are having a little bit of trouble getting in. So I'm just going to give 2 minutes to everybody and I'm going to try to reconcile it. And then we're going to go ahead and get started. So just give me a second. I'm talking with everybody here. Talk amongst yourselves, of course. Lynn, you want to get us started in the meantime while I try to tech this and see if everybody can get in?
Sure thing. It sounds like we've got a good, well-rounded group here from all around the globe. And we're here to talk about the law firm growth strategies, the 2023 report. And I know each of us here on the call had some involvement in that in terms of looking at the key findings and analyzing sort of the report and giving our thoughts about how law firms can progress and kind of succeed in business development and marketing. So why don't we jump in there, Ben? Is that good?
Wonderful, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. You are in the right place, staying ahead of the curve. So Lynn, you really sort of kicked us off. This is really great. This is going to be a roundtable and a reaction to some of the key findings that we found in the white paper that Nexl performed over the course of the last 2 quarters. It was pretty interesting, some of the results and trends that we came out, and a lot of it was around the future of law firm growth and what law firms are doing today. And hopefully what we're going to talk about with the roundtable here is what law firms maybe could be doing moving forward. I know everybody has their own perspective on some of the strategies. So what are some of the roundtable topics that we're going to go over? The first were, what were the major findings? And I'm going to take a stab at this. I'm going to take a stab at sort of seeding the conversation with some of the major findings. The second was, what were the panel takeaways? So the idea is each one of you answered a question and gave a few key takeaways in your articles about what law firms could be doing to spur some of their growth. We're going to get into that. And then finally, how do we move forward? Before we get there, let's just go over some basic housekeeping, which is the first is, if you have comments, please go ahead and put them in the chat. The second is, the session is being recorded and will be sent out to everybody. And then the third is, the report itself, if you haven't registered, will be sent out after the webinar. If you don't want to wait, you can always just go over to nexl.cloud/whitepapers and grab the report. Just go into the report section, into the resource section, and then to the report section. So with that, I want to go and talk a little bit about the methodology very quickly. Who did we survey and where were they located? So the first is that we crossed the globe here, and we took a look at many different we asked many different law firms and lawyers across North America, Europe, the Middle East, Asia, Oceania, Africa, Central and South America. We really covered the entire globe, asking them, how do they grow? If I asked you to increase your revenue or your client base, or however you determine growth, how do you grow over the course of the next year moving forward? And we got some very interesting answers from everybody. But let's see that with finding what of those key clients were. And this is where we're at today. So we'll take a couple of, and we're going to go deep on each one of these with the panel here. But here were the major key takeaways that we found. The first was that 41% of the lawyers surveyed found it. They struggled to find effective strategies for winning new business. I know Ben's going to go a little bit deeper into this, and we're excited there. 48% of lawyers surveyed found law firm networks as their main growth strategy. I'm excited to hear Ryan talk about that insight. The third is 26% of law firms struggled to show clear ROI. So very interesting. Another 32% of law firms surveyed struggled to drive referrals from their relationships. I know that Norm is going to talk about referrals and the basis of referrals. And then I think the last really interesting was struggle to convert prospects into clients, 35%. So we're doing a lot of marketing and we're even getting into a lot of prospects, but a lot of those don't turn into clients. So I want to stop here before I go to my last slide and check in very quickly with the panel. Who wants to start? Whenever we take a zoom out from some of the key findings, let's go to Lynn first. You know, Lynn, you're working on the inside of Nexl. Any of these really, and of course you've had a very long career within legal, both as a CMO and a consultant. Do any of these sort of strike you as interesting, or were you surprised or not surprised by any of these findings?
Yes, I was surprised, and no, I wasn't surprised at the same time. I think that we're living in a really exciting time as far as business development and marketing is concerned for law firms. I think we're seeing more synergy between marketing, or you can think of that as demand growth or the top of the funnel, and business development, which, I think of as sales. And we all sell all of the time, all day long in different roles, right? And so I think these findings are about what I would have expected. I'm a little surprised to see the 41% at the top struggling to find effective strategies. But then the other side of me says, I'm not as surprised because, look, business development isn't typically taught. We don't, lawyers are not first sales folks. They're more consultative and they're specialists. So I was a little surprised that number was a little lower than I would have expected. And also the referrals, the number being 32%, that surprised me a little bit too, because I think that, referrals are so important and it seems to be such a natural part of the day-to-day. So I was a little surprised to see both of those numbers so low. And I was a little surprised to see, some might think 60% having marketing, BD, and growth teams in place was high. I thought that was low. I think that the investment in business development and marketing has never been more important for law firms, probably as it is today, and I've been doing this for 30 years. So I think the investments in the infrastructure, the teams, and the facilities, the tools to facilitate business development and to execute marketing and show ROI is something that every firm, no matter how small, should be focused on. So I was a little surprised by that too.
Anybody else want to jump in? Any takeaways? Anybody was surprised, not surprised? Anybody want to follow on?
Yeah, I would, Ben. I was, like Lynn, I was surprised and not surprised. The number is ranging from 25% up to 48%, was about what I had expected. But each one of these findings requires some very careful reading. And particularly to comment about the one that Lynn just addressed, I was not surprised that 60% of the respondents say they have marketing, business development, or growth teams in place. That really didn't surprise me. I think what we find, particularly in small and mid-sized firms, is they may have the team in place, but the team doesn't know what to do. The team is not effective. And that is also something that seems to come through in some of the other findings as well. But again, not terribly surprised, but each one of these requires some very careful reading because there's a lot of nuance in these findings and a lot of mini takeaways in every one.
I couldn't agree more, I think, and we're going to jump into that. Ryan, Ben, before we go to the sort of the key trends, anything else that was interesting to you from here, from your perspectives?
I think when you look at it, Ben, when you look at it there, it doesn't surprise me that the headline number there is the amount of people struggling to find effective strategies for winning new business. Because when you're looking at the key themes there, we're talking about using law firm networks, referrals. There isn't anything there that's actually kind of effectively going to engage new clients and different techniques on the marketing and business development kind of spectrum. So it almost feels like what they've traditionally done, lawyers and law firms are still trying to do. They're not leveraging the BD firms and the BD people they have in place. They're not looking to create new work-winning strategies. So if all the other numbers are lower, that doesn't surprise me because it all stems from that.
Great. Ryan, last word before we get to the key trends, and then we're going to dig into some of these in each one of your.
Yeah, it's the key word just came from Ben is leverage, and that's kind of what I focused on in my article, is that if you can plug into a network and figure out where, even if it's a local network, the people immediately around you, your local community, the key thing that you focus on as a lawyer. It seems counterintuitive because when you're coming up, you learn the law. You have to know everything about everything, and you think, oh, if I'm going to have a big clientele, I have to do all these different aspects of the law. But it doesn't work that way for small law firms. The ones that have the most success leverage their community, leverage what they do for one client into other clients. And so if they have a very specific focus, the referrals they're getting are from clients that would be other potential clients to the people that they're talking to. So if you were focused on pharma in a specific geographic, your client that's a pharma client is going to be talking to other pharma people because that's their network. And so once you tap into that specific network and they say, yeah, this person knew everything about this very specific thing, you're more likely to grow that network. And then you'll more likely be able to easily plug into speaking engagements and other things. So it's very much, like Ben said, leverage. And once you can find that lever to pull, I think you can have some success.
All right, so why don't we get into some of the key trends that the survey and the subsequent report found. So there was one big trend, which was the idea that most lawyers and most law firms prefer to use client development and personal development type growth strategies. So this could break down as you're really looking to generate more referrals from your current client base, and it's really focused around getting more from the current client base. The second is, and tied to that would be based on the lawyer and personal business development training, let's say, for the lawyer, or really focus specifically on the lawyer, specifically maybe the practice group. The second big trend is sort of the flip side of that, and that is around the idea that there's less focus on firm-wide strategies, and there's less focus around strategies such as cross-selling, upselling, expanding into new practice areas, et cetera, et cetera. So who wants to jump in here and take a stab at these two key trends and why that really might be coming out?
Yeah, I think there's two key things. I think one was mentioned in the introductions. I think it was Lynn who mentioned this, that lawyers weren't natural born salespeople or taught to be salespeople earlier in their career, which means that they're unlikely to do that stuff. And that leads to the second main thing, which is fear. So it's actually fear that's holding individuals back, that desire to put yourself out there, to go out and meet new people, to make changes. And that manifests itself in the belief that if you do good work, the next job will always come. And what you've done before will lead to the same success as it always has previously. And actually that idea is now not so much. There's a raft of competitors, a raft of new law firms, different types of legal providers. They're all offering clients lots and lots of choices. And if you're not out in the marketplace actively working your referrals, and I do mean actively working your referrals, you're going to find yourself falling way behind. So we talk a lot about don't leave referrals to chance with our clients. The idea that actually you can have an active referral program, you can actively ask them, you can actively mine them, you can actually offer to give people referrals, which means they're more likely to give you referrals in exchange, and being that kind of person there that's providing useful stuff to your clients outside of the work you do. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that people actually haven't planned for this stuff and haven't found out what their winning work strategies are. So that usual reliance that, 80% of your business comes from 20% of your clients, which, as you all know, puts your revenue and your business line at quite a high risk. That's gone on, but actually increasingly more and more in the modern world, you need to actually have less of that and an ability to know how to win work, and a recognition that you need to have a discipline to do it throughout the year, regardless of what your current revenue stream looks like. So most lawyers will panic when the revenue stream dries up and then go out and try and find work and suddenly go to networking events and you'll see them everywhere for about a month. Then they'll get a matter again and they'll stop. But actually they need to be doing it more consistently, more regularly, to have a more sustainable pipeline of work, which lessens the stress for them. So actually having a clear business development playbook or plan is what's required. And that's not surprising to see that come out here, but that's what's lacking in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with that. I agree with every single point made. I think that consistency is key. In my experience, I have seen that phenomenon where there's episodic business development and then a matter is brought in. I see this especially on the very time intensive matters like litigation that have certain milestones, and you really need to, put your nose to the grindstone for certain periods of time, and things slip. And what ends up slipping typically is the business development. Someone here on our panel had a chart that said on the referrals, give before you get. I loved that. I think that's sort of the golden rule of referrals and kind of kickstarting and getting those referrals started. But I think that that's exactly right. The status quo has never been more dangerous. So going back to that 80-20 comment that you had, Ben, I agree with that. But the status quo has never been more dangerous. We have a fragmented market. We've got increasing competition coming. And the question is, how can you deliver continuous value to your clients? How can you anticipate, first satisfy what they need today, their needs today, but also anticipate what they need tomorrow and also solve that today? It's a tall order and the world is moving very quickly, but getting that consistency and engaging and, like anything else in life, practice is important. So look, going to cocktail parties isn't everyone's forte. Walking into a room of 1,000 people that you don't know, and maybe Ben, I know from my company, can do that, no problem. But even I get a little anxiety walking into a room of 1,000 people I've never seen before. So anyway, I think that it may seem obvious, but it's firms need help in facilitating how to get those habits started, right? And then keeping those going. So I'm a big fan of coaching.
So does anybody else want to respond and pick up a little bit on Ben Paul's comments about fear and why fear and fear of change and the status quo might be driving a lot of these trends that we're seeing, the two key trends here. Anybody want to jump in here?
Yeah, I have a couple perspective on that, Ben. Earlier, the term fear was used, and I've always believed, as the American essayist Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, that knowledge is the antidote to fear. And in order to have that discipline, in order to have the courage to be able to go into that 1,000-person cocktail party, in order to keep up with what's going on, we need reliable information. Because without good information about what the clients want, how those needs are changing, without that information, we don't have a strategy. We have guesswork. And to get that leads us to the second part, really, which runs all through this report, I think, and that is communication. Finding ways to keep in touch with the clients, particularly the key clients upon which our future really depends.
All right, so why don't we go to each individual section here. Let's pick up with Ben Paul. Your comments were really around winning work and turning more prospects into clients. Do you want to tell us more about your section and some of the key findings that you found and some of your commentary?
Yeah, sure. Look, so I looked at that first headline stat from your slide from a couple of minutes ago, or probably a bit longer now. 41% of firms struggle to effectively win new business, which is high. I mean, that's nearly half the firms out there. So it's clearly a big issue for lots of firms. So it tells me that people are leaving that idea of winning new business to chance. And actually, on a firm-wide level, if you're looking at a mid-tier or larger firm, maybe not actually acknowledging it's a problem. And I think that's one of the first key points, is actually, it does come back a little bit to fear that if we don't acknowledge the problem, then we don't have to address it. We can just carry on doing what we're doing. For the last few years, particularly in this part of the world, we've seen law firms grow just by actually hiding at home, doing the work when they couldn't go out in lockdown because the work has just come. It actually heightened that kind of fear and that need to just, if we just do good work, it will come. But then suddenly now the world's come back out. The the economic conditions have changed. There's a global recession. We can't hide from that. It is the case. So where law firms have grown, they've actually not grown in the way that they think they have. So now they're actually understanding that, yes, they may have grown 5%, 10% year on year, but they've actually dropped market share compared to their competitors in their regions or where they're working. So they've tracked the wrong part of it. If you haven't grown market share when the market shrinks, you actually find you're in quite a nasty place. So people are starting to see that come in. So first of all, it's having that recognition, but then it's having a clear process. If only 60% have a BD and marketing function, well, how are they going to have a clear process to engage their clients? How are they going to have that step process to know that how they attract the clients to get new clients to actually recognize them and understand where they are in the marketplace? How are they going to engage with their clients? Going to Norman's point, how are they actually going to communicate with them? Do they have the requisite skills? Do they have someone there who can teach them those skills? Do they know how to onboard them? Do they do the feedback process? All that like virtuous circle, how you bring someone on board. Are they tracking it? Because I think only 45% of law firms have a CRM in place. So hopefully they've got spreadsheets at least in the background, but it kind of tells me this whole process is being overlooked to a huge degree, that things aren't happening, they're not tracking. There's no clear process to go ahead. So, it really does require that recognition that, yes, we need to change now. We need to get a clear process in place. The process itself is quite simple, but then it's holding each other to account and following it. And Lynn, you mentioned coaching, and I'm, a BD coach myself. So of course I'm going to say you need coaching, but it doesn't necessarily have to come from consultants myself. It just needs to be that support network. If you're not going to go that route of in-house, but you do need someone who has to hold, partners to account and say, hey, look, this is what's happening right now. Here's a mirror. Let's have a look. This is your business. This is where you're struggling. This is where the work isn't coming in. Are your structures in place at the partnership and deeds level to actually encourage you to cross-sell? Because, if you're going to pass a piece of work onto a colleague down the hall and they're going to get that recognised and they're going to go up a pay band, and you're actually going to go down a pay band because you've given them the largest matter the firm has ever had, you won't pass it. You're more likely to pass it to someone else outside the firm. So you get your structures right, get your BD and sales process right, and then you'll be finding that you can do it more regularly. And don't do it when it's panicked, because the most successful firm, and we have one here in New Zealand that's twice, all the studies and surveys show they're twice as prevalent in the market. People see them out in the marketplace more, and they've been the one that's grown the most in the last 10 years, so it's no surprise. And yeah, I'm sure they've got some things wrong as they've gone out to the marketplace. If you have that desire and that partner accountability to go out and drive and win work and meet new people and ask for referrals from your clients, see other clients, or in the regions where you can, cold introductions, you do that, then you're going to be more successful and you're going to grow. And you're going to grow in the areas you want. You're going to be able to start picking the matters you want rather than just taking the one that comes through the door. So, yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that kind of just headline 41%. But that's kind of fundamentals where I got to.
Why don't we pop over to Lynn? Lynn, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your section, some of the key findings, some of the commentary that you found resonated with you in your survey?
Sure. I also want to take you up on your offer just to kind of, Ben had a lot to say. There were a lot of golden nuggets in there, to unpack. So, very good. So, there was a lot in there, and it occurred to me just two things that I wanted to respond to. One is, the infrastructure is so important. It's a relationship business, and if you don't have a way to organize and know who you know and who you don't know, but you want to know, and how you know them, how are you going to, approach relationship development strategically? And there are so many software systems out there. I don't remember the statistic, but there were just a ton to choose from. So I think it's really important to get an infrastructure where you can deliver value to your firms and deliver those insights. And across the continuum, I see firms that don't do it at all, some that do it episodically, and some that do it, really strategically. But that's one thing I wanted to mention. And the other is that the internal collaboration is also as important as the external collaboration. So when you're, for instance, onboarding someone new, you want to help them to acclimate as quickly as possible and where they fit into the current clients. And you want to do what you can. I'm talking about it from the marketing and business development sense. If you're in-house, we're always working to try and facilitate that. And when business development goals on an individual level and professional development goals are aligned, I think that's where the magic happens. When you have lawyers who are developing a practice that they love and are also engaging in the business development strategies and plans, that's where I think the satisfaction and the momentum starts to kick in. But so I just wanted to respond to that. There really were, I know you said that jokingly, Ben, but there really are. If I had it recorded, I would break those out into a summary, and I might start my next week with them because I thought they were great. Sure, but so the section that we're talking about, I made a couple of points, and we were talking about firms preferring to use growth strategies that involve client growth and personal growth. And, I think it's important to take stock of, how the world has changed. Technology adoption has radically changed the way we live, in every single industry. And we also have a massive generational shift happening. So you have, we are solidly in the digital era that, 20 years ago, we kind of anticipated, and we're in the thick of it. And I think that, there's a few points I made. One is I think that the status quo is really dangerous. You can't live, I think Norman said, the 80-20 rule. It's not going to work. You need to have a growth mindset. So helping to bring a growth mindset to firms, I think, is really important. And for those who have the 60% that have business development and marketing teams in place, how do you let them make the highest and best use of their time? And I think that's something to really think about, because you want to get the highest value out of these very highly trained folks. And in order to do that, they need to be equipped in some way, and they need to be aligned with firm leadership, and they need to be aligned with the strategy of the firm to help bring that forward. So adapting a growth mindset, investing in business development and marketing, and that's both technology and teams, aligning with strategy, and viewing the status quo as dangerous. So I think those are one of the key points of the section that I handled.
All right, why don't we go ahead and go to Ryan. Ryan, a lot of your article was about the power of networks, specifically either law firm networks or individual networks. Why don't you dive in and tell us a little bit more about your survey, the statistics that you were commenting on, and some of your key findings.
Yeah, in my article, I focused on the divide between the big and the small, where the big firms do have those established things in place. And I think we can kind of suss out from the percentages that there's some winners in there. There's some people that are doing things right. They have a team in place. They're confident in their network, etc. And then there's others that are just struggling because it's all new. They're small. They're not in the directories, etc. So as I went out and had the experience in a larger firm, I'm like, okay, I can see where you can look at a larger firm in a CRM that's enabled, who's connected to who, where that referral might come from, what networks are lacking on an account basis, etc. Somebody small is not going to have that. Even if they have the tool, they're not going to have the connections. And so I really focused on the aspect of leveraging in a specificity of, this is the practice area I'm going to focus on, this is the location I'm going to focus on, this is how I'm going to present the law firm of myself and maybe a couple other people, and really tap into that, because then you can get into things like building out a content calendar based on the audience that you're focusing on. Like they might already have their event calendar in place for the Construction Society of San Jose, and they're going to have 5 events. They'll have their Keystone annual event, and as a lawyer serving construction law in that location, you just automatically plug into that, and you build out your tool set with the things that are in place from those potential clients, the clients that you want to serve in those early stages. And I think that would accelerate the business growth there.
Next, let's go to Norm. Norm, your section was really around referrals and the power of referrals, and how much they really drive a lot of the law firm growth. Do you want to tell us about your section, some of the key findings?
Well, one of the key themes of our discussion so far has been this idea of leverage. And I'm sure you'll remember it was Archimedes who said, give me a lever and a place to stand and I shall move the world. One of the problems that is suggested by the finding about struggling to get referrals from their relationships is that so many firms don't know where to put the lever. What is the place? What is the sector? What is the service line that will give us the best return on our investment, particularly the investment of time? And as I read the report, it struck me that we have a magnificent set of tools for marketing and business development. And unless you were practicing law on the planet Neptune for the past 20 years, most lawyers know what those are. And the question is how? How do we apply them in a way that doesn't frustrate us? And so in my commentary, I focused on 2 things. I focused on the need for the information that you must have to identify where in your client base are those best opportunities. And it goes back to the old 80-20 rule once again, that about 80% of the revenue in most law firms, not all, but most, are generated by approximately 20% of the clients. And so those would appear to be a good referral source for you if you know who they are. And surprisingly, many law firms don't know. They rely on instinct and guesswork. To address Lynn's excellent point, they rely on the status quo or the paradigms of the past. Buggy whip manufacturers have always been a great client sector for us, so of course we're going to need them in the 21st century. And so one thing is to get the information. The other thing is to keep in contact with the clients. And that's the other point I wanted to raise, that you can't rely on busy lawyers to run CRM systems. They should be as seamless and as lawyer-proof as possible to get the information out there, because that information, that communication is very important. And this links just to one other comment I have about the use of law firm networks. Read that finding with great care, because we're not talking just about the established networks, but we're talking about person-to-person networking, which can be done very well in the form and the structure of an established network. But the fact that you do not belong to a network is no excuse for not networking. And once again, the communications tools that we have available to us now are so much better than what we had even 10 years ago. And so I look at, where do we place that lever? Where are the best opportunities?
All right, so we've sort of gotten to the point where we can start to talk about the future. We've talked about some of where we've been. We've talked about each one of your sections. Let's flip the script a little bit, and let's start to talk a little bit about the idea of the future. And I want to prompt the want to prompt the panel here and ask a little bit about how important is the perspective of client journeys and putting yourself in the client's shoes. This has been something that many other industries have sort of picked up on, and which is developing a better client journey. Does anybody speak to the power of client journeys and whether or not that's a true leverage for law firms to a lever and leverage to law firms' pool?
So Ben, there was a couple of things that really intrigued me that other people said. Talking about growth mindset and talking about where do you put the lever, um, and actually it's like many things. It's actually in front of people, staring them in the face. So one of the things I'm asked about the most is how do I get in touch with my clients now the work's finished? Now we've invoiced them, completed the matter. How do I get back in touch with them? And you may know that they're a big fan of Into Miami, so you want to get them tickets to go and see Messi or whatever it might be. But we do all this kind of social chit chat, but it doesn't give you an understanding of what's important to them from a business context. So what is actually missing is a couple of key questions during the matter, when appropriate, to find out what's going on in that person's world. What are their business drivers? What are their client business ambitions and growth? Because we're not getting to know our client well enough. So for those of you who know David Maister and all that wonderful stuff on the trusted advisor, in that trusted equation, that intimacy part is missing. Really getting to under the hood of what they are important. Ryan touched on it as well. When you get into understanding what your clients are doing, look at their websites and build your content plan around them, that is the future. With all these tools out there like ChatGPT and people writing content and being able to do it much, much quicker, great. It means it's going to be even more targeted and focused. So the future for law firm growth is actually understanding their clients and providing the information, providing the tools, whether it's in law or not, because actually you can provide them reports from other people that are relevant to them to drive their business growth. Those who put their client at the heart of what they do, that client-centric focus across all their BD and marketing, and understand their clients, they're the ones that will win, and they'll win hands down. And it doesn't matter if they've got the billable model, the alternative legal providers, whoever it will be. But one of the things that most law firms are struggling is because these new firms have launched with an alternative model, they have a growth mindset because they're brand new. They also have a client first mindset, and that's where they're causing disruption. It's not just what people think the outcome part of how they're charging, it's actually client first. So I think that's the future of where it's going to go for those who want to be successful.
Fantastic. So here's another prompt, and this is the idea of going to market as one firm. This was sort of a flip side of the key trend, which is most law firms and lawyers prefer to do things individually. Does anybody want to comment about the power of firm-wide branding and going to market as one firm, and the power and whether or not that provides a lever to law firm growth moving forward?
Well, those are a lot of questions. Let's start with, I think that the client focus is right on, and there's still infrastructurally many things that we can do. So it's getting to know your client in the way that Ben just described. It's also setting up client feedback programs. So you want to be listening to your client, and you want to be focused on nurturing the relationships that you have with your client. So experience is really important. What is the experience that my client has with my law firm? And is that experience consistent? And do I show up as a unified, we say one firm at Nexl. I mean, I truly believe in that. Do we show up as one firm and provide a consistent, experience? I don't think of cross-sell as much as I think of collaboration. Where is my client going? What are their larger concerns? And how can I help them, even if it's not my firm delivering services? It's connecting them with the resources that they need, wherever those resources may be, just like management consultants do. It doesn't matter whether, we are the deliverers of that, but if we have a vetted, trusted, larger network that we can help our clients either solve a problem or help them to create an opportunity, that's where it is. It's providing the commercial perspective, right? So if your client is, say, a banker and you're a banking lawyer, you have a commercial perspective from being out in the market. And so how do you enrich the experience that your client is having with the firm. Yes, it's largely, transactional and you're working on transactions, but there are opportunities there to nurture those relationships and to provide a consistent experience. So I think those firms that are investing in ways to listen to their clients, to understand others in the market that have similar concerns and problems, and to anticipate where they're going and to provide the information in a natural, consumable way. Not, here's a 10-page memoranda and this is really important about how the law is going to change. And, I think you'd be interested in it. But how about just 5 sentences on why I think you, Ben, here's what you need to pay attention to. And here's the whole thing if you want to read it. But here's why I thought you would be interested in that. So all of that combined, I think the client focus is where it's at.
All right, I want to ask another question, and that is something that I've picked up from Ben Paul, actually, which is paying attention to clients between the matters. This is a niche topic, but as a former litigator myself, I remember how hard it was really to keep in contact with clients between the matters. Of course, you're always in contact with them during matters, but it's the times between the cases that tend to be where people fall down, mostly because they're picking up on other clients. Does anybody want to talk about how powerful that lever can possibly be for driving law firm growth?
Let me say something about paying attention to the client, because Lynn said something that's very important. And we already have learned so many new skills. Well, maybe they're not new skills, but they're skills we should have practiced through the pandemic. We've done some very interesting research with some of our clients about how the nature of the business conversation changed during the pandemic. And think back to those days. You were talking to the client, usually from your home to the client's home. And of course, you knew the client, but you sometimes got to meet the client's dog or the client's kids as they ran across the background. You got to see some of the paintings on the client's wall. And we noticed that a larger percentage of the beginning of these business interactions was being spent just asking the client how they were doing. One of our client firms divvied up all their major clients, allocated all their major clients to the partners, and the partners were required to make contact with that client once every 10 days, not to try to sell new business or discuss legal matters, but just to see how they were doing, how their families were doing, how their businesses were doing. And this investment is so small, but it pays gigantic dividends in terms of client loyalty. And so I think we need to keep on. I hate to say let's learn from the lessons of the past, but there are some good lessons in the very recent past that can help us do this a little bit better. And anybody can do it. You don't have to have an advanced degree in marketing or human relations. Anybody can do it.
All right, so let's sort of end here with the last theme, which is the power of targeting. And this is something that I know that Ryan thinks about deeply, and we even did a webinar on it. And really, sometimes people call this targeting, new markets, blue ocean, what have you. It's really the idea that growth can come from the idea of expanding into new markets and trying to get into new markets. So what does everybody have to say here about the idea of better targeting, new markets, and trying to expand through new markets into new service areas? What does everybody think about that lever for law firm growth?
Yeah, sure. The targeting thing, like, apart from all the science of it and everything else, the key takeaway is, like, my YouTube wouldn't look like your YouTube. And we have to really understand that all these tools out there have become so specific based on what they think they want us to see. And that's based on who you're connected with and what activity you do on the social media side. So if you were looking to connect with your client, you would create a new Gmail account You could log that one into YouTube on a new browser and then start watching the videos you think your client would watch. And then all of a sudden you'll have this whole range of input for ideas about content or what your client is doing or what's going on in the local area. The same thing happens with LinkedIn. If you're very specific in following, if it's construction clients, you're following all the construction stuff, you're interacting there. Hey, all of a sudden your algorithm from the LinkedIn side is helping power the content that might actually influence you on the BD side. The other aspect of growth that I think we have to keep in mind, especially from going from like a smaller firm to a larger firm, is just you have to keep in contact within your firm as well. Like the one I was at had a dashboard just to keep up to date with everybody on lunches and coffees and the things that they were doing to stay in touch with their clients. And one day, one of the partners saw that somebody else in another practice area was having lunch with so-and-so, and they're like, oh, FYI, we have a lawsuit with them right now. We're getting some back payments, and they're suing. So, just so that things might not be super chummy at this moment in time. But so that aspect of growth is also, you have to grow the team once you grow into a team, and you have to keep the team informed about the overall picture. So it's this double-sided coin. As you grow, there's some growing pains, but it can be managed. Yeah.
Okay, so this has been a fantastic conversation. Why don't we wrap it up with some major takeaways? If everybody could just go around and sort of give their main takeaways. What stuck with you? What did you learn? Give us your main takeaways as we sort of wrap this thing up and get it out of here nice and smooth.
Yeah, look, I think one thing that really came across there was the need to put client first and have different skills and a better conversation with a growth mindset and a desire to really get under the hood and understand who your clients are, who their networks are, and what's important to them. And that just informs everything you do on your growth strategy. So yeah, absolutely key takeaways.
Collaboration and preparedness, right? And they go hand in hand. Marketing, business development, synergistic, they go hand in hand. So Norm picked up, we all picked up on a lot of that, but being prepared, so using your relationship intelligence to show up prepared, to know who knows whom, how you know whom you don't know and want to know, and how to connect with those folks. So collaboration and preparedness, or knowledge, data, insights, however you want to call it. I think those are two pillars that we really need to focus on.
And it is all so much easier today because of all the tools we have and because of the fact that we can meet together like this from Florida, from New York, from Hong Kong, from New Zealand. And I see some other friends that are online from other places. It's so much easier today. We have the tools. All we need to do is go out and collaborate and leverage.
Yeah, Norman stole my thunder with that last word, leverage. If you can find that lever that cuts across client, content, calendar, the whole thing, and you're just pulling one thing and it amplifies all of that, I think you're in a really good place. And I feel a little left out with excellent quotes from Ben and Norman. So I was thinking of Yogi Berra. It's like deja vu all over again. That's how a good client cycle should feel. A new client comes in, it felt like just like that old client, and that old client's coming right back. Deja vu all over again.